Testing, testing. Can you hear me, Chris?
Wires, and I'm assuming it's.
Somebody go back and do my test.
Now it's good.
You talking here.
Lord's good, ain't it? I'm gonna go do testing.
Yeah.
Go. That's it. You can ask me to notice this. I'll read that.
Got it. Then everything else. You got it.
Quick. All right, there's a social hour done.
Might be a good fight.
Right. I just saw it on Facebook.
For who?
Democratic.
For what?
Democrats are having 6 to 8.
City announcement, city?
Yeah, I text you on. I saw it.
So much for being advertised. I never heard a word about this. The meetings we go to, they never mentioned a date.
Yeah, it said, is there something scheduled for Legion tomorrow? Dennis committee, have, reach 6 days. I just find the same.
The council that's sitting here.
I hope there's a 5 thing. One flat.
Testing. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We can barely hear you.
Yeah. You can hear us, I think.
I can hear you loud and clear.
There we go.
We're up in the.
It's all the way up. Space coming up.
Jeez, I forgot to call me earlier.
Ready? Still ready? But it's gonna be late.
Yeah, you just got a few minutes.
All right, at this time, I'll call the special meeting of the City Council for March 24, 2026 to order. City Clerk, can you please read the announcement?
Yes, sir. Special meeting of the Common Council. To the members of the Common Council of the City of Tonawanda, New York. Pursuant to the power vested in me by Article 2, Division 3, Section 2.048 of the City Charter of the City of Tonawanda, adopted January 1st, 2023, I hereby call a special meeting of the Common Council of the City of Tonawanda to be held at the council chambers in the City Hall, Tonawanda, New York, on the 24th day of March 2026 at 6 p.m. Said meeting is being called for the purpose of meeting with the city treasurer and such other business as may properly come before the council. Dated this 10th day of March 2026. Signed by Jenna Cook, Council President. To council members and mayor, you are hereby notified that a call for a special meeting of the Common Council of the City of Tonawanda, New York, of which the foregoing is a true copy, was on this day filed in the office of the City Clerk of the City of Tonawanda, New York, dated this 10th day of March 2026, signed by J. Mario Pena, City Clerk.
Thank you, City Clerk. At this time, please call the roll.
Sheasley,
Here.
Fisher,
Here.
Gregg,
Yes.
Voisin, I have
Council
word that he might be
President
late.
absent. Fourth word, Voisin absent.
And
Okay.
excused Council President Cook.
At this time, Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Sheasley.
Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America. To the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
All right, this time I call up Rick Oates, the Associate Chaplain of the Tonawanda Fire Department, for a prayer.
Hey. Prayer. Dear Lord, giver of life, we're very grateful. Thank you for many, many things. And thank you for a multitude of mercies, both fires these past couple of weeks. Things could have been tragically worse on many fronts. Be with those affected by the fatality in Tonawanda, as well as those impacted by the dangerous structure fires in our city. Renew, refresh, and strengthen our first responders. Thank you for them and their families. For this meeting, we're grateful too. We're asked for guidance and empowerment as those that are here, not here by accident, but are called to this duty at this time. Being about the business of the community, loving the community like they do, self-sacrifices, laying down their life for such, with each other, seeking help from above, stewarding resources, strategizing, implementing, pursuing a community of life quality for all, the least of these in our neighborhoods to all our neighbors. And lastly, Lord, may your goodness and favor prevail. where seeming impossibilities are made possible. We're excited about the potentials now, tomorrow, and moving forward. Much love and good success as we pray. Amen.
Thank you. You be seated. All right. So at this time, we're going to go into the formal session of the resolutions. This time, we will take comments by the public on the resolutions and motions. Anybody would wish to speak, they can approach the microphone. Online is a place to make yourself known that you'd like to make a comment. City Clerk, there was nobody in the room that has approached the microphone. Is there anybody online?
No, sir.
All right. At this time, then we'll go forward with the motions and resolutions. City Clerk, we can begin with resolution number 1.
Resolution number 1 by the council.
Seconded by the council.
Resolved that the common council minutes from March 17th, 2026 be accepted as filed.
Comments or questions? All right, please call the roll.
Cheesley,
Aye.
Fisher,
Aye.
Gregg,
The resolution passed. Resolution number 2.
that's resolution number 2 by council member Fisher.
Do we have a second? Second. Seconded by Mr. Schleswig.
Whereas the 2026 Tonawanda Housing Authority budget was the sole focus of a special Tonawanda Housing Authority board meeting held on February 23rd, 2026. And whereas increases in rental income due to new subsidized housing income from PVV wage and benefits increase of 4%, cost of materials increase 8%, and cost of property and liability insurance increase of 9% were all approved unanimously. And so therefore, be it resolved, these budgetary items are subject to the approval of the local legislative body and the New York State Division of Housing and Community Renewal as governed by public housing law.
Comments or questions? Clerk, please call the roll.
Cheesley,
Aye.
Fisher,
Aye.
Gregg,
Declare the resolution adopted. Number 3 for executive. Do you have any executives?
I do not.
I do.
You do?
Yeah. Contracts.
This time, the mayor is requesting that we go forward with the resolution number 3 for executive involving contracts. I will sponsor resolution number 3. Do we have a third ward councilwoman Susan Gregg will second? Comments or questions? City Clerk, please call the roll.
Cheesley,
Aye.
Fisher,
Aye.
Gregg,
Resolution adopted. We will be going into executive at the very last part of the meeting following the public hearing on the budget. At this time, I will make a motion to adjourn the formal meeting and go to the informal session. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Schleswig. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Cheesley,
Aye.
Fisher,
Aye.
Gregg.
All right, this time the formal meeting is adjourned. We are into the informal session of it. Mr. Schleswig. Informal.
The machine that was purchased, I don't know what we call it, the paper. I guess it's worked very well when they hit Main and Seymour Streets. A lot of it, and that's a great thing because all the holes in the city. It's going to take time by the time to get that around. My understanding, they will not hit like what's the streets getting paved.
Kilowatt.
Fillmore, I know is one kilowatt that they will not waste the product. You know what I mean? Which is it makes sense. The other thing is, my understanding, I took a tour of the fire department. Both his assistant chiefs and a couple other things answered a lot of my questions and got very and then the young man that was hurt, he's doing okay. You know, he's doing okay, which is great. A lot of questions were answered, and I appreciate that because I don't know, we were there, what, 2.5 hours or so? Yeah, right around there. And it was enlightening to, you know, I don't know how they operate on that scoff. I never yanked a hose in my life, you know. So, no, I think that's all I have.
Great, thank you. Before I begin, the fire department did reach out to all the council members and ask if we'd like to meet with them. I don't know if you scheduled anything. But I have a date with them to go over there and meet with them. So, a couple of the issues that have been brought to me. So Tonawanda Soccer Club wants to build bathrooms at Ives Park, and they're willing to pay for it. They're going to raise money. They're a not-for-profit, so they can fundraise, they can apply for grants, and then they have a good following where they bring in some funds. And they want to use those funds to build a bathroom. The last bathroom we had there was torn down. There's a cement pad there that the city and TSE jointly put porta potties there every year. So they're looking to get rid of that and actually build a structure that has running water. Dave's not here, but we talked about. There's already a sanitation line there. There's already water lines there. They're pretty flexible with moving it. They got a report pad to begin with. It's probably $100,000 venture. They're looking to do it, pay for it, and then upon completion of it, donate it to the city. So it would be like a standing existing bathroom that we have at the different parks, except for it would be ours paid for by them. What I'm looking to do is I'm going to do a resolution granting them permission to seek to build this. So this way they can have that permission so they can seek grants and say, if we're going to build this bathroom, we have permission from the city to build it. We can seek funding. They can pay for it. The resolution is not going to be specific as like building codes and stuff, because that's all going through the engineering office and through building inspector's office. But just my question to you guys is, before I write this, would you be in support of Tonawanda Soccer having permission to build a bathroom at Ives Pond? Yes, please.
Who's going to maintain it?
The city will, because they're going to donate it back to the city. It'll be a city building, city structure, once it's completed and built, paid for by them. And that's kind of the thought process behind it was, if they don't do it that way and they build it, pay for it, then not only who maintains it, but do they have exclusive rights to a city park? And it would be their bathroom located at a city park. And they didn't want to do it that. So this way, hypothetically, winter, it's not going to be winterized. It's not going to be 4 seasons to be winterized. But, when soccer's in the off season, if there's other people there, the basketball hoop, the playgrounds, people could still use the bathroom because it'll be a city bathroom, be open to the public. So that's their thought process behind paying to build it and donate it. But they're in the same problem that Tonawanda football had, where we bring in, not hundreds, we bring in thousands of visitors to these sporting events between the whole season for football and for soccer. And I've been to a lot of them because my kid plays on both of those. And we are like one of the only places in the area that people come to use the bathroom. We stick them in porta potties at all our fields. Our soccer field is porta potties and our football field is porta potties. The only time they get away from the porta potty is if they paid to rent the high school, and they have it up at the high school. So Tonawanda football had a grant, and they are going to repair those bathrooms. That was at least under the last mayor's administration. Allegedly, we got a grant, and that was supposed to go forward for the repair of the bathrooms that are already there. Ives, they had to bulldoze it. There was, if you guys don't remember the structure, there was a hole in the roof and different things. So those been completely wiped out. So I was going to do a resolution granting them that permission. And then they could then take the permission and then work with the building inspector and the engineer and then whatever party they end up hiring to build the bathrooms, because it'll be their responsibility to build it. So it's not going to be on our DPW and our workers. It's going to be on them to find and contract this out and spend those funds. But I think it'd be a great addition to our city to get a nice bathroom in the soccer field paid for by someone else. What do you think?
I got no problem.
Only thing I would suggest is have the city attorney look over your resolution before we do it.
Yep.
If there's any liability during building, things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure we insurable, whatever, right, the standards.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything. If we pass a resolution, it's got to go to you. What do you?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay. So that's something I'll look into, write it, and work with the city attorney to make sure we're covered liability wise. All right. And then more donation stuff. Wendy Code, who is a double lung transplant survivor, 100% disabled veteran. was looking to donate a statue or some type of tribute at the corner of Main and Park, at the park next to the cemetery. And there, right now, we have the big sign that says "Welcome to the City of Tonawanda" there. There's 2 park benches in the center where there used to be a light pole that's been broken down for a few years. And it's just a center cement, and it's prime for some type of statue or something of that nature. And what she suggested is one of the big buffaloes. She would like to put one of those big steel or concrete buffaloes there. So as you drive in the city, you see this big buffalo. And the only thing she would want a plaque explaining that she donated it and why. It's a Donate Life tribute. And she requested the buffalo be painted in Donate Life colors, which I believe are blue and tan or tan, blue and green of some variation. And she's willing to finance the whole thing and beautify that section of the park. I'm bringing it up. It's not about writing the resolution yet. It's whether or not we would have support to put a large buffalo there. I know Buffalo, we're a suburb of, or a city next to a suburb next to Buffalo. It's not actually Buffalo, but putting something that we looked at a tree of life, and a tree of life is a big metal tree, and the leaves have different names on it. You can't even look at them for less than 25,000. They're very costly. It's a very nice tribute, but that's something that's more crowdfunded, not solo funded from a local person here in the city of Tonawanda. So we looked at the buffalo angle. That was her suggestion. That's something she liked, and it's something that she could afford. So she wanted to go with it. It's the project roughly between working with the DPW to have the buffalo put. They'd have to, it would be union work at that point to have it bolted down or stacked down or however they fold it down. I don't know if she would paint it, would come paint it, if they would ask the art board to paint it, but if the art board painted it, they would donate for the supplies, however the financing worked. But total, it'd be about a $5,000 project or less. Their goal was $5,000 or less. But I think it'd be a beautiful way to beautify that corner. And we've been looking to beautify that corner for a while, and no cost to the city. So thoughts?
I'm fine with it. Something else, improve, catch people's eyes.
It will block the sign.
Oh no, because if you're familiar, the sign is closer to the cemetery and to the street, and the recessed circle where people walk has a pathway that walks through. So and it would be I'd estimate buffaloes are about 4 to 5 feet tall, about 6 feet long. Oh,
Okay, the Timberwood.
Here's the problem: is they're all prefabs. We're not commissioning something here, but yeah, if it'd be a prefab, the prefabs only come in certain styles: buffaloes, bears, squirrels for your EPA.
Indian.
Yeah, Red Warrior.
But then the request was to be painted in Donate Life colors. So again, if we put something up that gets painted in those colors, it might lose.
Well, you can look for like type thing out.
Well, that's an option I'll discuss with her.
Yeah.
But right now it was just buffalo was what we put forward.
Well, yeah,
we know where to find the buffaloes around here for $2,000. Big metal buffalo.
Yeah.
They have these little L brackets on them. They bolt into the cement so somebody can't steal them. That's the thought process we had to beautify that corner.
I mean, if they have other animals, that'd be great.
I won't be against it.
I don't know
I'll
who.
prefer our mascot.
Do you know who sells these? I will look into them. Like the buffaloes you could find, everything else it's just whatever they commission for major cities. Like Erie, Pennsylvania has squirrels. Like we have buffaloes everywhere. They have squirrels, that are full size 4-foot squirrels. It's like their thing.
So you should, whoever makes the buffalo and the squirrel, ask them what else they make.
What else they have?
Yeah, well that would be an option. Yeah, see if they have some type of wolf or something.
Yeah, that would be awesome if they.
I don't want to speak for her, but I don't think she'd be opposed to the animal choice because she's more concentrated on the plaque and the colors to promote life. Because without she's a 5-year. She calls herself 5 years old because she's 5th year of her double lung transplant. Without it, she'd be dead. So this is kind of her way of giving back, and her legacy will be to us is to beautify that corner.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will discuss that with her. And we will look to see if there's other acceptable animals, and if so, where we can buy one from. But this is
Google search.
it's not a matter of a Google search because if you buy, let's say I do find a 4x6 aluminum cast wolf, and it's in Colorado. Sometimes you have to freight ship them. That's $1,200 just to freight ship something like that. And if she's on a budget and the buffalo's down the street and the guy says for $2,500 I give you free delivery, you kind of got away with that. Unless you're willing to kick in some money.
Here
Holy,
Let's see what we got.
Okay. All right. That's what I have for the informal. Third ward.
I just want to thank the fire department for their wonderful job. There was 3 fires these past couple of weeks that it was just tragic. And all the other departments in the city who stepped up and helped out, they were all really appreciated. That's all.
Thank you. Fourth word. At this time, I'd also like to announce for people who weren't here, Jason Poisney is now present for the remainder of the meeting. We called you out.
Formal.
Yes.
We already called for the formal and adjourned from the formal and we marked you absent for it. So now you're here for the rest of it and the budget hearing.
Okay, it's just the.
Yes.
Okay. I did want to discuss some of the ordinances. I don't know if we do that now.
No, yeah, please, because they're not on the resolutions yet, so this will be the time.
Yeah. The tax, just have some reservations on the limited amount of tax allowed in the ordinance. Everything else seems pretty okay. We came to some limits, but limiting people to 1 deck, that may have multiple watercrafts, limiting properties, also deciding on what other properties along the creek have more than 1 deck. I have a big concern about that. I looked at other ordinances at other cities. The canal does state it, but it also says that the 4 boats do as well. But other cities don't give that limitation. So I don't see why we have to get that limitation. And have to follow precedents of the canal when we're not rating it up for that.
It's not the size of it.
Well, yeah, there's some setbacks that we discussed. So, I mean, the setbacks are a little high. We reduced them a little for side boats. I think even perpendicular, parallel, we could look at that a little closer to as well. I mean, 10 feet is reasonable if you put a boat on the side because boats usually put wide with bumpers and stuff. So that's okay if it's a perpendicular, but if it's parallel, I don't even see why we have to give that much of a limit for that as well. I mean, all the way to the end, you can go to the end.
Of your property, you're saying, to the end of your property. So if you only own 35 feet, you ain't getting bigger than a 35-foot dock.
Yeah.
So
Well, no, right now, the way it's written is 25 because the 10-foot setbacks, so.
So looking at your email, wait a minute, because the city attorney did reply recently. I'm not sure if you saw the reply, but
Okay, no.
you put in there, depending on the type of dock installed, L, comma, U, comma, F.
Yeah.
What are those? I don't know.
Different styles,
Okay, so if you're parallel, I see what you're saying, going the whole entire property length,
yeah,
and you would, in theory, only have 1 dock,
yeah,
right? Because you wouldn't double park them, right?
yeah.
But if you go perpendicular, you're talking about having up to 4 docks, which would give you 3 slips. But how far out into the water? Like, where's their property lines?
It's 30 feet.
So that's what they say.
Over 30 feet of them, we should double check on some, the club and see how big theirs are. I'll make sure we're not restricting them in the future. But, I think they're probably can't really call it efficient because it's a.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that, I think that's reasonable though, with the size of boat you can bring up the creek. But to even properly dock a boat, you really want 4 ropes tied off it.
So which would be 2 docks, one to the left, one to the right.
Yeah,
Hold it
I mean, that's ideal. Most people like that when they're not there for a long time. Just putting it along the canal, it's great overnight, it's fine. But if you're not there for several weeks or something, you really want to constrict, have it set up so it's not hitting the docks when boats are going.
So one of the questions that also, and I don't know nothing about this, so that's why I'm asking you. Like, if you were to sell used cars on the front lawn, I think there's a vehicle and traffic law that says if you sell more than 5 per year, you then become a used automotive dealership. You have to apply for different licensure.
Yeah.
So is this like this type of thing where if I have 4 docks, I'm still residential, but if I have 5 docks, I'm commercial?
I don't know. I don't know if the attorney's here. I don't believe there's a law like that. The canal states that, but I don't think the state does.
When you say the canal states, that would mean the canal corp
There's
says.
a canal, some of the copies are the canal rules, just for the canal. They said if it's your 4 boats, we consider you commercial.
So if I own 50 feet and I put in 5 docks, they're going to call me 10-foot spacing.
That, we set the rules here. So.
Right. So you're saying if I own 100 feet of docking space, I can put 9 docks in and it would still be my personal residential?
Well, you got in between 2, but still, I mean, it should be your choice, probably 100 feet, 10 on each end, so 80, and then like 4 or 5, probably.
His response so far was the ordinance should be introduced as it is. It can be debated and amended. And then after we have the public hearing, the public hearing's concluded, then the council as a whole would then determine if we want to amend and modify the resolution. But he's saying, this was as of 5:58 p.m.
Yeah.
He's saying we should at least introduce that, get it on the agenda, so then we can call for the public hearing, because right now we're just debating in an informal,
Yeah.
and we've not even begun any of the steps that we need to do for this.
But are they as written?
He's saying as right now, to
Yeah.
put it up as written.
Yeah.
We comment on it, we then call for a public hearing on it, and at the conclusion of our comments and the public hearing comments, then we amend and modify it
Yeah.
based on public hearing, based on our own.
Because I recommended that item be removed.
So now I saw another email from you,
Yeah.
where I believe it was between you and the building inspector, and
Yeah.
he wrote back in red.
Yeah.
And then there was a lot of them where I think, see, he agreed with you, he said, yes, this could be, I agree, this could be removed, I agree, this. can be
That one
removed.
was
Which one was it?
the one dock.
Oh, they're going with one dock per property?
That's what it said.
But you're saying even if I was a solo homeowner with even just one boat, I would still want two docks so I could have 4-point tile.
If you want to tie it up properly, and if you have some jet skis, floats are counted as docks, so those.
For terminology.
If you want to keep a jet ski in the water on the creek.
Oh, right, you want to lift it up, under
Yeah.
that floating. So for terminology, is a slip different than a dock? Because if I have two docks,
Yes.
I have one slip down the middle, but I'm building two docks.
Yeah,
Then if I threw a third dock in, I have three docks, two slips.
yeah,
Is that what they're going with?
the docks is the dock.
And
Not a slip.
and to your point, and this is why I'm trying to make sense of all this, to
Yeah.
your point, if I have husband and wife boats, I need three docks to create two slips.
If you have really nice slips,
Yeah.
let's say you have some jet skis, those floaters.
Oh, as soon as I put a floater on my jet.
Those also count as.
So I'm living on Ellicott Creek, I got two boats and a bunch of jet skis, and I need stuff to do.
Yeah,
All right, I've just been following your email thread between
Yeah.
the building inspector and the city attorney trying to grasp all this.
I mean, I don't want to deter this or the whole thing going through, we gotta get something going on, but, you know, something like that just seems like, because we're following one rule when there's hundreds of rules out there that you can reference.
The canal rules supersedes.
Not pretty. Possibly,
So the-
probably in the,
I
you
mean,
know,
it's a state law, usually the state supersedes.
yeah,
the
state,
city.
and I'm not familiar with the state.
I think it was said in another email or discussions that state does not have control of that creek,
No control.
no control.
Yeah,
just
that's there,
just the canal.
and then the canal is the canal court is in charge of the canal. The other waterways, a lot of them are Army Corps, but there's really good restrictions, that's why. There's no maintenance, laws on them. But then, so it's up to us to set how we wanna set it. And I looked at all other cities, you know, like I said, a bunch of them, even some you sent to, the two other two sent, they didn't have restrictions on as well. It's just only the canal.
So what's his reason for restrictions? Do you say?
Well, he was just recommended follow canal court rules.
And I think it's more safety and making sure he can inspect the docks to make sure they're not.
Well, yeah, the overall ordinance, yeah, just to. Sure that, you know, things are
limiting
following
how
the
many
law,
decks?
limiting, you just, I believe he was only just recommending follow the canal ordinance. But again, it does state in there, if you're in a different waterway, the state or canal court or whatever will take precedence. So, you know, our Speedy Creek, the canal will take precedence.
We have two creeks, correct? We have Tonawanda Creek and Ellicott Creek, that both meets at the canal. So we have three waterways, am I saying that correctly? Or is Tonawanda Creek considered the canal for all intents and purposes going all the way to Amherst?
Well, it divides, you know,
Well,
everybody says the canal, but I'm
It's
just
all
belief
town.
is that by you go by the Pascal Bridge.
really,
you-
a time city
it's a-
town.
The Main Street Bridge and you veer left, that's, I believe that's Tonawanda Creek. I think there was, you know.
You're sitting at East Niagara, you're at Tonawanda Football Clinic, and you're looking at the water, you're looking at Tonawanda Creek.
No, it's.
That's the canal?
See, the problem was when they built the canal, the creek was there before.
Yeah.
Right.
And then so it like.
But those houses have docks there.
Right,
So are those houses, are there docks on the canal or are there docks around Tonawanda Creek?
On East Niagara,
Yeah,
there's the canal.
all the way through, all the way to the city limit, all the way up to,
By the football clinic.
yeah.
Yeah, yes.
That's considered canal.
Actually, I believe that the state owns their, people that own, right? I'm not-
With those docks that are there.
Yeah.
So one guy has a full gazebo down on his dock
Yeah.
with a TV and everything. It looks like
right by the clinic.
yes. But it's not just his, there's also multiple docks down there.
Yeah.
And then what's that, not Remington brand, the factory that's down there,
Washington.
Washington, yeah.
Yeah.
All the way up until the city limit, there's.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're specifically talking about Hunting Creek? Okay.
Well, that did, but then we switched it. Originally you said that, and I said, should probably make it for all waterways. But you know, then there's superseding laws, but I'm fine, I'm good with all the waterways, we should just say docks.
Hunting Creek, once you cross the bridge.
Yeah, no, this is all the way to the river, then it goes all the way down to Erie County, okay, Tonawanda Creek. Where it says, you know, where I reference the canal,
Yes.
it's Tonawanda Creek,
All right.
because, you know, everything was dug up 3 years later and filled in.
Originally it was written out for Elm Creek, that's why I said it should just be all.
Okay.
Just docks.
So based on this reply from the city attorney, as far as the ordinance, because there's 3 ordinance that he said that he wants on for the April
Well,
7th.
that's why it's struck through already, I think they're.
So the other 2, so this third one for the docks,
Yeah.
you're gonna hash that out with him as far as whether or not you think it's ready now to go on the agenda?
If whatever, what feedback you guys think.
Well, he needs a sponsor for all 3.
Yeah, because you
But if you're-
houses and all that.
Discuss it, change it.
I'm not, I mean, yeah, it's ironic.
You're not gonna be on the 7th?
Yeah.
Where are we going?
So.
Sure. When did he say that the public hearing was scheduled?
He doesn't have one. He was aiming, he had dates, he was aiming for, I don't know if it's in this email thread, but it was for May, right? It was the first council meeting, the April 21st public hearing, and the first council meeting in May to actually discuss or to vote on it.
Yeah, I'll just.
So he'll be back at the public hearing. And
The
you're gonna
21st?
say
Yes.
She said we'd be at the public.
So if we put it on for the 7th, all 3 of those, whatever ones require a public hearing, he was hoping to do the public hearings on April 21st, and have the final votes on May 5th. So if we do the first passing, then April 21st, you're back for the public hearing, make your comments, and then we have till from April 21st to May 5th to make the amendments to that resolution.
I don't know what the rush is. It's only been on, from my understanding from Eric's 2016, you know, it's been laying out there. I think, you know,
Okay. Anything else?
No, just, yeah, that's Spelling Bee was this week, great job, and thanks for all their service and the fires, Mr. Briggs, appreciate it,
Good.
take care of those.
I'm good.
Good. All right. So at this time, we're going to adjourn the informal, and we were going to begin the special meeting for the purpose of budgetary discussions. City Treasurer, would you like to pull up a chair and come join us? All right, City Clerk, at this time, the informal has been adjourned, and we're now beginning the special meeting for the budgetary discussion. You can sit right here. We have an empty seat right in the middle. It has its own microphone just for you.
it's okay.
You're thinking to yourself, why didn't I tell you that before you moved the chair, right? Also, City Treasurer, is the Deputy City Treasurer present with you? If the Deputy City Treasurer is here, you can bring the Deputy City Treasurer up too. We can get a chair.
No, says no.
So at this time, we'll begin. Anybody would like to begin with questions, comments, suggestions about the budget, which we will be voting on the second council meeting in November, correct? Yep. And then usually what happens is we sit down in October. The mayor gives us the budget on October 1st, it's due by October 1st. And then we get to look at it, decide whether to increase it, decrease it, chop it up, increase taxes, decrease, whatever. It's up to us. So I guess the purpose of this special meeting now is to ask him questions, hear what the mayor's flavors are, and then have this open, candid conversation. So when the mayor presents the budget by October 1st, we're all not too far away from each other.
Yeah, the suggestion.
Please.
I'd like to, after the first quarter, which ends the end of March, after Adam had said I've been caught up and Donna, I'd like to sit down with the major department heads, police, fire, and DPW separately and go over their expenses for the year so far, any unanticipated costs, and what they're looking at next year already in the budget. I don't want to leave this until after the mayor presents his budget. It gets crammed in, and that's not a good move. And I think we're all expecting some unexpected costs. I said to Adam tonight, of cost of gasoline
Oh, yeah.
could go out of this world, the cost of the electric bills, the gas bills, those are things that are out of our control. And we have to know up front if there's any other places where we're gonna have to cut or hold back on spending. We don't wanna get ourselves like the city of Buffalo is. So my suggestion is to meet, to plan when he gets the quarter done, get it closed, start some serious looking into what we got.
How long would it take for your, yeah, I know March, we had discussed earlier, how long would it take by the time you get that?
Yeah, I'm looking at like sometime end of April, early May. We should have that closed out and have those numbers ready. I think it would be fair to give the department heads the first look at it before we come to this public meeting. So I think sometime in that early May time period would probably be ideal for these type of meetings.
Yeah, I certainly second that. I mean, the purpose is to start reserve is kind of calling for it for October 1st. Be pre-prepared when that needs space.
And it helped the mayor prepare next year's budget too, where he sees exactly what's being spent and anticipated and unanticipated.
I got a question for the fire chief. So we have 3 major house fires recently? Three. So will that drastically affect your budget, having?
It should, we didn't have any major equipment issues. Manpower.
Which is overtime.
Finding out through, so,
But other than that, there's no additional major
no,
fees, costs, nothing to the city for that?
it's all planned for.
That's a positive thing.
So earlier today, Adam sent us an email with the budget from the ones we looked at before, 24, 25, and 26. And then in there's a bunch of yellow on the 26 lines that he highlighted. And Adam, do you remember, you have copies off the top of your head? Okay, so on page 4, general fund, gasoline, diesel, fuel, you highlighted starting at the 133,000 all the way down to the bottom line of 281,000. Why did you highlight those? Like, we should be lowering that? We should be raising that?
I mean, it depends on where you want to go with the service. So, you know, if we get rid of a garbage department, then obviously your gas would go down. If you don't get rid of that, you know, with the political climate, then I think we should have to increase that. That's definitely a line where I think there's a lot of room to play depending on what you want service wise. You know, if we want to, you know, reduce numbers office on the number of officers on the road, then there's going to be one less patrol driving around. You want to roll back some of the fire service, you know, there's going to be one less truck rolling around. We don't want to do that, then obviously we're going to have to probably increase the line with, you know, Susan and Greg's concerns with the rising prices of gas, which I think are going to be pretty much here to stay for the next at least couple months.
Which is going to affect the whole year's budget.
See, the police chief is still here. How many cars do you put out on a shift?
Minimum 4 hours.
Does that include the supervisor? So a lieutenant and 3 officers, you have 4 cars driving around. We can't really read.
One of those could be a detective, that's a station and
But that counts for minimum staff. But so it doesn't necessarily mean they're driving around as long as, so what you're saying is for your minimum staff and you got 4 on shift, but that doesn't necessarily mean there's 4 driving around the road. But if a major comes over, then the detective would go out, but if it's all PDO accidents, then you just got road patrols already out there. Yeah. So if you got a detective, you're counting minimum, you could really have a lieutenant and 2 officers on the road then. So then if you double up that officer car, you really have 2 cars, a lieutenant and then 2 officers, and 1 traffic accident, everyone's tied up technically.
traffic accident.
That's it, you're done. So in real life, if that happens, assuming you got 3 cars out there and that happens, what do? How do they backfill?
Well, the detective will go out and backfill patrol spot.
until one of the patrols clear their call.
So they're clear, and then, kind of prioritize, like, once you go and get a situation calmed down, if it's an active call, calm it down, and then go out to the non-emergency call.
Okay. So, and I don't know if that was part of there, but I did that on purpose, that conversation, because I don't think that reducing vehicle, like police wise, and I don't think they have electric garbage trucks. So I think gas is gonna be a problem.
If we want to maintain the current level of service we offer, if we want to reduce the level of service we offer, I think there is room for that. Which is also the catch-22. Do we want to make it a less safe city? I don't know, but if we're not going to raise taxes, we're not going to be able to keep paying to have a highly safe city. That's what I've been saying all along. We got to make decisions of, do we want high service or do we want lower taxes? If you want to lower taxes, then we got to rethink how we structurally do things. It's not how we do things or the status quo. We have to rethink how we do everything. We're looking at a $3 million hole.
It went up to 3 million this year.
It's got to be close. I don't have 27 number yet, but I mean, we're going to be getting close to that.
And even with the local municipal increase from the governor.
That's in 26. I'm not going to plan for that in 27. We don't know that it's going to be here in 27.
But that's for 26 numbers.
Correct.
So if that's on the 26 budget that we passed back in November, then we've already made back 600,000 of that deficit.
Off of the 2 million, but that revenue.
I thought it was 1.5. I thought the budget hole was 1.5 when we closed that out.
Was it that? Was that the final one once we did all the amendments? I thought it was still over 2. 2.5. I got it. Yeah, I was gonna say it's still
It
over
was
2.
3.4 when we started.
Something like that.
We're down
and
to
then-
2.5
then
and
we
the governor's increase of 600, we're still
Yeah,
at.
and then we did the resolution at the last minute to do a little bit of a tax increase.
What?
Don't assume it's gonna be used for that either. So it's there.
And like I said, when we're talking about planning 27's budget, we know it's coming in 26. It's the same money they told us not to plan for 25, 26, and now we're gonna plan for it in 27. That's not something I'm
Wait,
comfortable
so
with.
you're saying don't plan for that
In 27,
state
no,
government or the state money?
yes,
Okay.
the AIM funding you're talking about.
Yeah, the one the governor gives us was 300,000, was
Yeah.
projected, now it's gonna be 900,000. And you're saying that's going on 26 budget. With that budget there, with that budget, $2.5 billion budget line.
Right, yeah, so we can
We were
reduce,
counting on 300,000 coming in, now we're supposedly that
we weren't counting it on any money.
we weren't counting on any.
No.
So now we've got, if it passes with the state budget, we would have 900,000 coming.
Right, so now you would drop to that 1.6 range. We're still in a $1.6 million hole, but if the money doesn't come in 27, then you're back to 2.5 plus whatever other increases you have for 25 or 26's expenses when you're planning out 27's budget.
Yeah, because that 900,000 was.
It could be there, it could
It was
be,
usually 300,000.
it could be 3 million next year, it could be nothing.
Correct. Well,
You-
it's an election
but the
year.
state of-
We don't expect it to be higher next year. This is probably like the highest. It's gonna
And
be.
the state's advice is to not budget for it, is to not budget that the money's gonna be there. So I'm not gonna build that money into
It's not
27
in hand.
budget. If it comes in, then we're further ahead. I agree, the cliff is, further away, and that helps us get there, but it's not something that I wanna plan on having.
So to keep this moving, I appreciate that,
Yeah.
to keep it moving. General fund contingency contractual, you highlighted the $5,000 line under economic community development. Do you know what that is?
It's just something that we use to try to promote business in the city. It really hasn't historically been used very often, but it's something that I think we could talk about potentially.
It's
Dropping
only under
out.
general fund contingency, so it's only if we need it. It's
Right.
Not even really used.
Exactly.
It's almost like a slush fund at that point.
You can think about it that way, yeah.
Auxiliary police equipment, $4,500. Back to the police chief. Do the auxiliaries buy anything themselves? Uniforms,
So the 500 is for 500,
500 for maintenance equipment.
then like their uniforms, like we buy their uniforms for them. Most of them have them, but if one gets a hole in it, we gotta go buy a uniform shirt, pants, things like that.
You highlighted it. Suggestion is to cut it.
For both that and the fire volunteer. We got paid guys.
I didn't get there
We
yet.
want to reduce, but that's the next one's coming, but
It's coming.
the next highlight, but those highlights are both on the same idea that, do we need them? Do we possibly need them? I don't know.
Well, let's start with the police chief. Do we need them? That was the question. That's
We
right.
don't always use it all, if I go back to the big back budget. You Would be, the $1,500 for clothing uniform was $836 left in the year, so. You only use what is necessary, it's not like we should go buy them all 2 uniform shirts, 2 pairs of pants, pair of boots. They have a supply, and if there was an issue, then you purchase that or something, so they can go out and do their volunteer work.
Okay. So that's the question he says, he said there was $800 left over for that line. That goes back to the general fund then?
Yeah.
Because they're not using or losing
It's
it,
just not spent.
which
Yeah,
is a good thing.
it's just not spent.
It's just not spent, okay.
Don't think about it like the money we put in here for a budget doesn't necessarily come out of the general fund.
No,
The
but
money, this is what we're planning to think is gonna come out of the general fund. When we close the year out, that's when we know what's gonna hit the fund or not.
what I'm worried about, and I think we had a discussion with the last council, Sean and Dave were still here, was the use or lose option. Whereas hypothetically, if there was 4,500 in the line and they knew there was 800 left, instead of giving the 800 back, they went out and said, hey, let's go out and get 5 more flashlights. We don't really need 5 flashlights, but if we don't do it, we're gonna lose the budgetary line anyway, so let's spend it.
We could reach a point where we could tell them, no, it's just spending without council approval.
I don't think we're there yet, but that was one of the proposals, you're right, that was they start running it through us and then doing it quarterly, but that's what he's doing with the check badging right now. But that's still not getting us anywhere except for late fees. Okay, so now you're under the fire department. Volunteer service, if what you said is accurate, you highlighted everything, you're saying cut the whole 49. Now, we've only paid 30,000 for the right to enter into the contract with, that's a 7,500 per company, for 4 companies for a total of 30,000. Then they have all these other limits for a total of 49,600. You're saying just wipe it all out?
I just question if there's a need for it or not. You know, we've seen some of the attendance numbers and they're saying that they're struggling to find people to do the job. I question whether it's needed or not. We have a paid fire, unique, unlike other municipalities.
Question for the fire chief. So it says 30,000 to enter into the contracts, maintenance contracts. That's the 7,500 a company for a total of 30. But on top of that, there's 10,400 for equipment. And then below that, there's $2,400 for maintenance of buildings. But the buildings are in city buildings to begin with. So why is there an additional $2,400 fee on top of that?
For certain things, they get to. They fall under the volunteer quarters, but, kitchen equipment, Melvin, about last year, got some grant last year, repairs, we put that in that line, lighting issues, electrical stuff like that.
So inside, like, let's say over at Wheeler Street, if there's lighting issues, the bulbs break, you actually differentiate whether it's in the paid fire department area or the volunteer fire department area? Okay. Because I'm looking at what the city treasurer is saying, and I'm looking at this going, if we're giving $7,500 per company, they came in and they tried to explain it, and they said insurance was the big one, and you just did the resolution for the insurance with them last time. Then once we give them the 7,500, you would assume that it would be everything they need. It's really costing us additional 18, so roughly 20,000. So it's an additional 5,000 per company. So it's really not 7,500. It's almost 12,500 per volunteer company. So I definitely, I'm going to circle that one for my own information later in the future. Under the general fund volunteer service, if you look at all those lines totaling 49,600, might be some money to save in there. I see you have the city cemetery capital project, 7,000. That's the next one. Being a member of the cemetery committee, I see what Ron Schneider does with the money. I see what he's trying to do to beautify the cemeteries. I actually go to other cemeteries when if I'm on vacation for other things, and I just look around. And Ron's right. You know, how you treat your cemeteries is a reflection of how you treat your city, and that's the first thing you see coming down Main Street is our cemeteries. Salem and St. Francis are very well kept. The city's doing better now, but we have a group of private volunteers. So if you don't like the 7,000, which is highlighted, what are your thoughts?
When we're facing a budgetary crisis, is a necessity or need to have a beautiful cemetery, or is it to pay our bills to make sure the doors can stay open? You know, we're talking about whether we want to raise taxes or cut services. I think that's something that could be cut, that yes, some people may be mad that the cemetery isn't as beautiful, but I think a lot of people wouldn't see it.
Okay. Going down the line, 5,000 homeless initiative, thoughts?
Same thoughts, you know, if we're in a budgetary crisis and we're trying to find ways to cut money, you know, supporting a task force to help the homeless, I think that's more of a want than it is a need. And I think that's more of the identifying things that I was trying to get in here. It wasn't necessarily that we are gonna cut anything that I highlighted. It was just suggestions of places where I think there's more want in the lines than there is need in the lines. The rest of the budget, I think, is pretty solid, and there's not really much else you're gonna wanna touch. So if we're not gonna cut anything out of these lines, where do we go to balance the budget?
Well, I have a few more questions on that because we do get to some of the bigger numbers, but to piggyback on your idea and just spitballing for the city council members, I agree with that. And that's why like that corner that I was just discussing during the informal, that Wendy wants to put Buffalo or Timberwolf or whatever we come up with, you know, part of the thing, like anytime somebody has a discussion with me, that's the first thing I say is, where's the funding coming from? I had someone approach me at the end of last council before you two showed up. And they said, I want to put a natural playground down by the river. And I said, absolutely, it'd be great to put it. Who's paying for it? We'll get the funding if you get us the permission. That's what I like to hear. We'll get the funding if you, so we can give out permission for free. Where you getting the funding? And that's a big one. So the natural playground went through. There was a few other resolutions that we put through and we passed, and it was no cost to the city, but it made it Bob Gregg Grove, Linda Foltz Park, the natural playground. These were all things that we were able to put through to the city with no cost to the city. And, you know, that's things that I want to see. So I agree with them. I can't speak for the homeless task force, but I can speak for the cemetery committee. They do their own fundraising, and you know, because you maintain the account. So you know, so they count on supplement of city funds. But
personally, I think that it should be funded by donations and not city.
those different groups,
I mean,
those different groups.
well, like the cemetery and the homeless alliance, you know, there's county money for the homeless. There's state money for the homeless. There's organizations that support it to come out of the taxpayers' pocket. I think this, especially when we're in a financial crisis.
That brought up a very good point. That, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, but I'm gonna make a note to talk to the city attorney or the new mayor if he has any insight. We had that problem. We were going to have a city fundraiser for the city cemetery committee, and the council president came in and said, with the old city attorney, cities can't fundraise. The city itself can't fundraise. And then we had to do some type of essentially money laundering to find some type of non-for-profit to quote host the fundraiser and then donate the money back to our city. Do you know if that's actually a true statement that the city can't fundraise?
Yeah, I don't think the city should entertain fundraising.
But how do they get away with doing the fundraising for the youth board over there at the different events they have over at Veterans Park? And they have ticket sales and do what?
Fall Festival.
Fall Fest, that's what I'm talking about, Fall Fest. They do basket raffles, they sell tickets, and they essentially fundraise. But then when the city cemetery committee came out and said, we want to fundraise, they said, nope, city can't fundraise. So it's really the last administration was you can have your cake and eat it too kind of administration, because they would allow certain people to fundraise for the purpose of funding their coffers, and then they wouldn't let other groups do it. And that's what we had, that was the problem we had like the city cemetery committee. We had to go partner with the American Legion. We couldn't just go to somewhere and host a fundraiser and say the city of Tonawanda Cemetery Committee is having a fundraiser, line that budget line, the 7,000 down to zero, and then rely on private donations because they told us we were prohibited from doing such. But then, like Ms. Gregg just brought up, that was a perfect example, was that Fall Fest says, well, we need to raise money for the youth board. We're going to have a basket raffle. And they're able to bring in funds on fundraising.
So to correct that, the basket raffle was run through Rockin' with Santa and then donated back the same way that the Elks was.
The one the mayor ran.
Or not the Elks, the Legion.
Yeah, but the one the mayor ran. So the mayor ran his own fundraiser.
So at Fall Fest,
the mayor with Rockin' for Santa ran a basket raffle and then donated the money back to his own.
Yes, the same way the Legion did for the city cemetery.
The Legion's not owned by me.
I mean, if you want to question the ownership, but it was done the same way with a nonprofit donating back to the city. The question was, should the city fundraise? And it was done the same way.
Right, but we were just discussing with the city cemetery committee, the homeless outreach. These lines should be lined out and they should be seeking funding. But when they try to go seek funding, they're prohibited.
I mean, my suggestion would be go open their own 529 and then they could be completely separate of the city. They could do whatever they want. But they don't want to open their own 529 because there's a lot of costs in that. And there's a lot of maintenance of doing.
The homeless outreach could. The city cemetery really can't because it's city cemetery property. And that was part of the fight they had was if they did that and they went to go mow the lawn, then they get grieved because the union goes, now you have a not-for-profit mowing the lawn, that's union work. So homeless outreach is a little bit different than the city cemetery committee as far as going not-for-profit status.
Yeah, but I don't think the city cemetery can mow the lawn either way. I think we've gone down that route.
We have. That's my
Whether they're
point.
paid or not, but they're not supposed to cut it.
That's my point. So that doesn't help as far as raising funds independently. Because if they go and raise funds independently, they still can't mow the lawns, can't hire anybody to mow the lawn. Where the homeless outreach, if you're saying went on private on their own, what'd you say, 529? Yeah. If they go private on that, they could raise all their own money and they could put everybody in the Marriott if they chose to. That would be up to them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why the city, like I said, the city cemetery can't cut the grass either way. So I don't see why the commission with their own 529 couldn't go out and buy they buy the compound to touch up the stones and make them brighter. They bought a tripod to lift the stones. Why can't that all be bought by the commission that just comes in and does the work that our CETA guys don't do?
That's a good point.
You know what I mean?
That's a good point. So having these organizations and taking them and saying, here, you go get your 529 status.
Yeah.
And then you can partner with the city. Otherwise, your budget line goes up to zero.
Like you said, give away permission for them to work
Give away
on the
permission.
cemetery, no cost to us. And then they can they can fundraise outside of the city. They might need a name change. I think it might be a little tough to, say Tonawanda City Cemetery Committee. You might want to do a name change on the 529, but that's kind of how I would think about things.
Got it. Okay, so then the next one you have that's big is snow and ice removal, personnel salaries, 90,000. You highlighted it. You think it's higher or lower?
I highlighted the whole section.
Yeah.
Same thing. And if you wanted to reduce service, we could cut back on salt and only salt our main roads and intersections. You could cut back on service in the sense of, when you get up to go to work at 6 a.m, you got to wait till our DPW guy shows up at 7 because we're not paying him on overtime to go plow the roads.
I have I don't know if the mayor knows the answer to this question. City attorney probably would. Isn't that a liability issue? Or if we say we're not going to salt during the midnight shift, someone slides off the road and we go, it's because we don't salt till 7 a.m.
Yeah.
We
did it when there was a salt shortage.
I think that's exigent circumstances. I think in a general liability sense, we have a duty to at least provide basic minimum. I know, so one of the things Sean Ryan over at Buffalo was saying was to preserve the life of their plows, they all put what they call them hockey pucks. I don't know the official term. It keeps the plow blade about a quarter inch off the pavement. Skids. So it looks like a hockey puck, and it keeps the blade from scraping. Thus, it keeps longer life on the blade. But it gives you a horrible job as far as plowing. It leaves that quarter inch of slick snow on the pavement. And it's one of the things he said he's going to remove those hockey pucks so the blade would scrape, but then he's going to buy more blades. I would give you that, but to just say we're not going to salt and cut a line, I think we'd be held highly liable.
Said I was open needs or wants. If you want to reduce the service, you don't want to reduce it. That's your guys' decision.
I think that's a need though. I don't think that goes for wants for general road
You're asking
maintenance.
for a list of suggestions. These are my suggestions. Whether agree or disagree, that's fine with me. I don't make the decisions. I just make suggestions.
$114,000. So municipal, the pool. You highlighted everything for the pool.
Close it.
Eliminate the pool.
Close it.
Okay. I'm going to ask this one out loud. Senior Center. Highlighted all of it.
Same thing. We're in a financial crisis. If we want to balance this budget through cuts and not through a tax raise, this is the conversations we're going to have. I get the residents aren't going to be happy if you close a senior center. I get the residents won't be happy if you close a swimming pool. But are the residents going to be more mad if we raise taxes, or are they going to be more mad if we cut their services? That's what I need the council, mayor, et cetera, to find out from the residents and see what we really want to do. Because we're at a crossroads. There has to be decisions made of whether we're going to cut services or we're going to raise the taxes.
Last one, I don't know if you know the answer contractually to this. I did read through the contract. We highlighted garbage, trash removal, salaries $824,000. The whole, you highlighted everything down $876,000, and then the $550,000 for the garbage disposal contract professional services. So it's roughly $1.4 million in savings. But I believe based on their contract, even if we privatize sanitation, we can't get rid of the people that work there. We just have to move them over to DPW. So we really don't save that much in salary lines.
In the first years.
And then through attrition, you would just lower the DPW back down to where they were, number wise. But then you're going to a private sanitation. You're talking about a franchise like Waste Management or some
Yeah,
or
right.
those other BIF or BFF or whatever they
Right.
got nowadays.
And I know that, we have to, the revenue share, anything that we save, we also have to pay back to the union on that, but that's all in the first couple of years. Once you're through all the first couple of years, then you're gonna start seeing the bigger savings. We're looking at long-term financial.
So this revenue share that they pay back, when does that zero itself out mathematically?
I haven't looked down that road in depth to this. I can look.
I'm just curious, like, are you talking 3 years or are you talking 15 years?
I think it's a 3 to 5 year range that the payment is done. And then anything after that.
So the question is there $1 million in savings after those 3 to 5 years? Would we really be net 1 million by privatizing sanitation? The answer is no, then.
The city itself?
Yeah.
I think so. The residents though would then have to pick up a bill. You know what I mean? If we're gonna net this all the way down to zero, then that's, the city's gonna facilitate a contract for, so we get the economies of scale for a company to come in and pick everything up. But the resident is then gonna have to pay that company directly to get their garbage picked up. And if they don't pay the fee, then they don't get their garbage picked up. The city won't be involved in it other than to facilitate that contract to get the economies of scale. So yes, I 100% agree. Or I 100% do think that this could get zeroed fully out.
So once that happens, this is news to me that I thought when we privatized, we just contract as a city, we contract with a private company.
You can do that as well.
And we write the check based on the taxpayers' money. Because if you're saying you're going directly onto an individual pay, we have people that don't pay their taxes on their house. What happens when they don't pay their garbage?
Then it doesn't get picked up.
But then I, as a neighbor, have to watch the rats come in front of my house because my neighbor hasn't paid for his garbage pickup in 3 months and his totes are overflowing and he's not even using a tote anymore. He's just using garbage bags in front of his house or in his driveway.
Which I absolutely hear. So you don't want to cut garbage. So where are we going to get the money to fund it? What are we going to cut? I get that these are cuts that you might not agree with, but what are you going to cut if you don't cut any
I
of this?
didn't agree with anything. I didn't say I did agree. I'm just saying I'm questioning to have an open, candid conversation because ultimately the first round of cuts comes from this guy.
And with that, I don't think they would do it where you direct bill the residents. You'd basically go with a garbage user tax fee.
That's what I was saying, the user fee, that's Buffalo.
Right, and then it'd go on your taxes. So your neighbor wouldn't have to worry about the garbage not being picked up because it would be. But that bill then, if you didn't pay it, would go onto your taxes and keep going until there's a foreclosure and the NREM and everything else like that. So I think to get zero cost on that, you'd end up transitioning from picked up in-house to an outside firm with a garbage user tax fee to say, now the city would negotiate that contract to try to get the best rate, as in 5,000 in parcels, as opposed to you individually calling Modern and saying, I live on Main Street and need my garbage picked up. That would be the benefit of the city. But if you wanted to save the 100%, you'd really just be transferring that to a user tax, which again isn't saving 100% of it because you just take it from your right hand, putting it in your left hand.
So if you raise taxes 5% instead of 4%, it's the same as if you raise it 3% and put a user fee on somebody.
Exactly.
I'm to the end of my questions with your highlighted. Anybody else, please?
Well, yeah, do they know the long term of having us do it or private, our costs?
As I said, I haven't done a deep in-depth analysis of these highlighted lines. These were just lines that I think I sat before the October council meeting. I maybe sat for a half hour or so and looked through the budget and tried to identify and came up with a list of items that could potentially be cut, right? I'm not saying these have to be the cuts, but if there's things in this budget that you're looking to cut, these are things that I think you could start with before you start looking into other lines.
Yeah. And I want it for the record though, that everybody knows too, we have not looked at doing any of this. So there is no numbers on eliminating this. Don't get, this is throwing things against the wall to say, we have a $2.5 million deficit. How can we do it? We can't do it cutting paper clips.
Yeah.
So, but I just want to clear for everybody in the public, nothing has been looked at of privatizing garbage user tax fees, eliminating cars or the pool or the senior center. None of that has even been talked about other than pure numbers. How do you get that $2.5 million down? These are spitball things to say. Let's have an early discussion about it, because the other side is going to be, and it will be brought up, that you should pass the resolution now that says if you have to go over the tax cap, we go over the tax cap. We're not promoting going over the tax cap, but it's a tool in the toolbox if we need it. Because clearly we cannot stay at 2% and maintain the services we have. So it's simple. If you don't want the services we have, we'll keep it under 2%. If you want to keep these or do a combination, then you're going to have to think long and hard about the tax cap because we cannot do both. We're depleting our fund balance and the end of the road is coming sooner rather than later. And those decisions in 2 years are going to be higher than they are today. No farther than Buffalo with a 25% tax increase with more coming. I believe the number you had, and these are ballparks, to balance the budget so we don't take anything out is a 25% tax increase today. That's what we're looking at to maintain and stop raiding the fund balance. Nobody has an appetite for a 25% tax increase, but we have to have these discussions because structurally we're imbalanced. And you can't do it on, you know, $800 on gas. That's just, so I just wanted everybody to take a deep breath and not think that this is gone to where there's discussions on eliminating people, jobs, departments, programming. None of that has happened. It's just having an open discussion, which I think is fantastic, about what are the things we have to make decisions on. So everybody has time to do that instead of with 1 week to go in September, oh my God, what are we going to do?
Well, once all the rumors fly, we'll have more people at the council meetings.
Yeah, perfect. So back to my questions.
So we don't really know the difference if not making taxpayers pay for what privatized would cost versus maintaining it ourselves, if there would be a savings or not. Say, for instance, example, it costs us 1.4, but to rent it out to Pinto or Matter, and it only costs us $1 million a year. So theoretically, you could save 400. So we don't really know that.
Not at this point.
Okay. Okay. And maybe it'll be more. Maybe
Because,
they'll
I mean,
charge 2 million and our 1.4 is a deal. Like it could be the flip side.
Yeah, I haven't really heard any indication that there was an appetite to reduce the garbage service here. I think the residents, from what I've heard, enjoy the heavy pickup every week.
Yeah.
They enjoy the guys picking it up. I mean, the other factor on that is you get rid of the garbage, you know, as Chris said, you got to keep the guys around. Well, if you didn't keep the guys around, then when you start spinning that wheel to get guys in to plow over the winter, who are you going to call? You know, I mean, that's the other benefit of having garbage here is that you have an extra CDL drivers that are doing something all year round. And then when you do have to call them for plowing, you have those CDL drivers to, so there, I mean, there is benefits to having, I'm not here to say that we should cut every single one of these things that I highlighted, but you know, I was asked to give a needs versus a want list. And that's kind of where I started with all these things.
Oh, I hear you.
And we just got to ask the questions.
It was just curious, you know, if there was, even if there is savings, or maybe losing.
Yeah, you know, and there could be, you know, it could be very well that true to that case. You know, the other piece of it too is, you know, you got your EB cost, you know, employee benefit costs, which, you know, as Chris noted, we won't see the savings on those right away. But as you start phasing those guys out, you know, it's not just the 1.4 that you see on the garbage. There's other, you know, costs of having those employees here. Exactly. And, you know, as we reiterated, this is the very early budget process. You know, we're trying to figure out where we should look into, I guess, is where we're at.
I know she meant. I'm sorry, so the 1.4 heavy stuff. So.
Yeah, it was the
full, yeah.
it was the if you look at the budget, 8160 is the garbage removal line. So it was all the maintenance of the equipment, all of the salaries, and then all the tipping fees was the bulk of the charge there. Obviously, you would probably see a reduction in gas cost as well, and inclusive of the employee benefits. But that was the two, you know, that was the two sections that we added when we're talking about that 1.4.
All yours.
What are we gonna do about the pool? Have we thought any more about that? Are we looking for grants for it still? I understand the grant that we went through, you guys went for last year, didn't go through. That's gonna be a big expense opening it. You know, this is almost April. Pool open for their 8 weeks and 2 months, 3 months.
Right, so the, excuse me. The plan is now to open the pool as is. We've resubmitted that grant for Swim New York. We've also reached out to Schumer, Gillibrand. Senators Zellner, Assemblyman Conrad, to go through the whole gamut of where is their grant money, where is their funding that we can come up with. We've also reached out to Congressman Kennedy. There looks like there is a possibility of some funding coming through there. There's an announcement going to be in a little bit, but we are actively seeking to replace that. But as of today, you're right, that grant was denied last year. So pretty much the plan is to open the pool as it was last year with those expenses, with the loss of water that we have, and to try to move forward.
And speaking of grants, what do we do with our grant writer? How does, I understand you have them on retainer,
Yes.
and then do they look for grants for us? Do you
Yes.
say we're looking for grants for new police cars, and they come in and say these grants came through?
Right.
That's how it works?
So we basically put a list together of what our priorities are and try to say, focus on this time. The pool's been the big focus this time with what we asked them to do. So they'll come in. It's up to the department heads and my administration to kind of target, what are we looking at? Where are we trying to move forward? What's the project we can do? And then get them to seek out where can we find funding for this and concentrate on that, go in that direction.
Do you think they're doing a good job? Or should we be looking around and maybe seeing if there's something better out there?
I've been very impressed in the last 2 months working with them fairly closely on the service that they do provide. I was a little skeptical. I shouldn't say skeptical, but just kind of being on the outside more, not wondering what happened or what they do, and seeing kind of the inner workings now. I'm very impressed with what they've provided us and the work that they've done.
You're satisfied?
At this point, yes, I am. Yes.
Now, do we pay on top of that? I know, what do we pay, 1,800 a month?
Yeah, it's something like that, 1,800.
That's all we pay them? Or do we pay them if we get a grant, or if they apply for a grant, is more cost for that?
They get a percentage.
I think it is.
They get a percentage of the award.
I believe it is, but
Adam, what are your thoughts on that line? Should we keep that line, the grant writer line?
I think with the amount of money that they bring in for us in seeking the grants, that the expense is justified.
there's a lot of work that they do that I didn't realize with the city engineer and with DPW on the requirements that they need for different projects that Jason does and has to administer through his office. The work that he does is incredible compared to what I realized even working alongside him, or at least as a department head for 10 years. I didn't realize the amount of paperwork and different things he has to have, and they really work well with him. And I think if you brought him in, he'd tell you that he's been real happy with the product he gets from them.
Yeah, I mean, just on the retainer, it's, like 24,000 a year, but they bring us hundreds of thousands in grants.
Going back to, you say, bring us in, Sutton Homes, supposed to build 15 houses around the old Riverview project. Did they start pulling permits for those houses?
You'd have to ask Eric downstairs, sorry.
You would know if the money came in for the permit fees, right? Like you would notice.
So it's my understanding, and this is just having meetings with him personally, that they're doing that model home. And then his plan is to bring people in. It's not going to be a build out and then sell. It's more of a, here's the lots we have. He was an architect by trade, so I know that though there's a model house that if someone came in and wanted a different design, that he will work with them. So I don't think you're not going to see like 17 houses up in 2 years and then for sale signs. It's going to be more of a, as it comes, here's a lot, you could pick your lot and do it and design and go, but it's more of a.
But it's still good though, because as he's doing that, he's pulling plumbing, electrical, construction. So we should start seeing that money come in this year, these different permits. So I know we went through the cuts. What about the increase in revenue? What besides raise taxes? What else we have? We talked about these 15 new homes. We've talked about Riverview. I know I talked to the assessor. I'm probably going to quote it wrong. I believe she said once it's 60% complete, it goes on the tax rolls as it's 100% up and running.
Correct.
So, I don't know anything about construction, but Smoke on the Water appears to be reaching that point where they're going to go on the tax rolls as a 4-unit building.
Correct.
So we're going to start seeing this increase in revenue. ever so
So,
slightly.
so I guess that's where I'll caveat the difference between the levy and the assessment and the roll. So they're gonna get added to the roll. That doesn't change how much money we're gonna bring in. It just changes how it gets split across the residents, right? So them getting added to the roll isn't like, no, we're gonna take our levy from, what do we do? 15 something million,
Yeah.
almost 16 million. It's not gonna take that from 15 to 16 million. It's gonna take that same 15 million and split it by more people.
But to split it by more people, don't we have to do a reassessment?
No, because it'll get added to the roll when through the permit.
So to get it even more
the new
accurate, we would
construction.
have to do a reassessment.
I believe that one wouldn't be because it's a new build. So it's gonna have its assessed value. They're gonna assess it as a new build. Like our assessor is gonna put a valuation on it and then it'll get added to our tax roll at that value.
But then for me as a taxpayer to realize my savings to my tax rolls, I don't have to wait for a reassessment to come in.
No,
My taxes go down when that house gets built,
if our levy stays the same,
our levy stays the same. But if those new houses, 17 new houses and a smoke on the water and a Riverview building, 60 apartments come online, then we raise taxes, it's almost a wash.
yeah, and the amount of property you'd have to add to really make an impact on a tax rate is, you're not gonna come close to it.
It's gonna be in the millions.
Yeah, I wanna say it's maybe 300 million, something like that.
That's
Like,
300 million would be to wash your
Would give
$3
you-
million.
No, I think that would give you like a 1% change. I'd have to look back in the numbers to double check them, but you gotta add a lot of property to the roll to have that impact.
I'm just saying that $500,000 a house up at Riverview, 17 houses is roughly, $8 million in new revenue.
Yeah, and I mean, and our roll is like, it's not new revenue line, no. It's just gonna add to where's our roll on this sheet? It's gonna add to our $1.2 billion roll.
So that's where we stand right now. Our city is worth 1.2 billion.
Yeah, so we take our, okay, so we actually took 16.2 million out of the levy last year.
Yes,
And that gets divided by the 1.2 billion
billion.
to come up with the tax rate, and then you multiply it back by your rate per thousand to get you what you pay in tax.
So if we reassess and we become valued at 1.4 billion instead of 1.2 billion, because the assessment company says all our values went up.
Right.
You can suck more money out.
Your rate per thousand will drop, right? Because you have more assessed property, given the levy stays the same, right? We're making an assumption the levy stays the same. If you raise the assessed, the rate per thousand will drop and all the taxes will drop in a sense because you have another player paying that piece that all the people should have been paying. But adding more to the roll doesn't inherently solve the question of what we want our levy to be, because we have to come up with what we want to determine our levy to be to balance our budget.
Right, so we can increase our levy in theory 4 or 5%, but if we bring on more additional housing, more.
You need a lot of housing.
I know you need a lot. What I'm saying is it offsets, where if we stay at
It
the
does.
cap, if we stay at the cap and bring in this additional housing, you might actually see a savings, where if you raise it 5%, but bring in all this additional housing, you might not actually feel it in your tax increase. Even though you're getting a 5% increase, you might not feel it as much as a 5% because it's being split amongst all that
Correct.
new,
Correct.
right? Because we're splitting the levy.
Yes, you're splitting that levy by more pieces.
So okay, anybody else? So before we call for a conclusion then, I'd like to hear from the mayor as far as, I know it's the council called for the special budget meeting, and we're glad you came. You're initially gonna set the budget between now and October 1st and decide whether we cut, raise taxes, whatever you wanna do before you give it to us, and we cut, chop, slice, whatever words you wanna use. Thoughts on budget plans?
But yeah, right, so any additional revenue we see coming in?
I think you're hard pressed to find it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really see many lines where you could bring in. I guess where you're gonna bring in $1 million or a couple $100,000 of revenue. Yeah, there might be some lines where we could find ways to bring in 50, 60,000, but
Yeah.
when you're looking at a $3 million hole, that's not all that impactful. Even, I think the idea of Papa Grande's is great, but $11,000 isn't gonna save our $3 million budget.
Everybody.
It does, absolutely. I'm not discounting that,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
when we're talking revenues that are gonna balance our budget, our top three are Erie County sales tax, which I think is gonna be pretty stable. We budget about 6 million for it, and I don't really think we wanna put too much more into that. If it comes in higher, then that's just an add back to the fund, right? We want to benefit, we want to budget our revenues on the lower side and budget the expenses on the higher side so that when it actually comes through, we don't see this big hit. We got to plan for the big hit as if it's going to be there. So then the next biggest one is our state aid, and that hasn't changed in years outside of the $300,000 that we got in 24, and then the 325, and then now the 900 we're supposed to get in 26. But the state has advised us not to bank on that, so we hold that budgetary number the same. And then the third biggest is the levy, and I mean that's like 85-90% of our revenues. So unless you're really going to find something really new and initiative to make some money on, I don't think the revenue side is going to be the answer outside of the levy.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
And then possibly maybe some sales give us a little bit extra money,
But even so, that's only a one-time revenue, so I really don't want to bank on all that because once we sell it, it's not like we could sell it again the year after.
Just for like next year.
Yep, absolutely. But I'm trying to plan for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To make sure we don't go out of here. So, it's nice that we're going to get these one times next year, but what happens in 28, 29, 30, et cetera? And as the mayor touched on, it is definitely my recommendation to pass the tax cap. We should definitely do it sooner than later because it does take 4 meetings to do it. We did it last year in the first 4 meetings of the year, which I love the format of. You just basically do it so that then we could come up with the tax levy or whatever in September, October. It keeps this conversation open. If you don't want to pass the tax cap, then it's going to be a 2% levy increase. We know what our revenue is going to be at. As I've heard around the table right here, I don't think there's an appetite to cut it. So if we don't pass the tax cap, I think we're just going to pass another imbalanced budget. And in this process, I don't really think it's going to be all that effective or necessary. And then just as a note for yourselves, the 4 meetings are the council has to introduce it. And then the next meeting, and we typically just do them at council meetings, but it can be expedited as long as we give proper notice. But the first is the introduction. The second is the council authorizes the mayor to have a public hearing. The third is the mayor has the public hearing. And then the fourth is the council passes the local law to go over the tax cap. So, I mean, we're looking at almost 2 months before we can get the full process done and through. And like I said, I wanted it to just be done in the first 2 meetings of every single year so that you don't get the outcry of, oh, why are you passing the tax cap? We can just say this is a normal process. We're going to do this every year, regardless of if we have, 2 million in our budget or in our fund balance, or if we have 20 million in our fund balance, we're still going to pass this tax cap because we want to be able to make that decision in September and October and November, not right now. If we don't pass a tax cap, you're telling me what my revenue is to work with, and then we got to figure out where we're going to cut it from. And if we don't want to cut it that far, then we're just going to take another fund balance.
Wait, so April 7th.
So it would be done in June.
Yeah, I mean, so if we put it in for next meeting, you could introduce it at next meeting, the second council meeting of April, you'd be able to authorize the hearing. First council meeting of May, you'd be able to have the hearing, and then the second council meeting of May, we would have it passed. And then we'd have the tool to make that decision, like I said, in September and October. And as we reiterated this meeting right now, we're not saying everything that we talked about tonight is going to get cut. We're also not saying we're going to use the tax cap. But we want to make sure that everybody's aware and that we can do what we need to do to make sure this, the financial safety of the city is in good health.
So you want my,
Yes, please.
so my role that I see right now is trying to do the best I can to get developers, business people in here to increase that tax base. We've met with, a company that we're working still with. We have a meeting coming up. The power lines for that project have to be moved to go forward. We actually finally got National Grid to schedule a meeting. We're meeting out to find out what cost would be to move those so that project could go forward. You talk about Papi Grandes and it's only $11,000. And I totally agree with that. But what I've heard in the first 2 months with meeting with these developers, they can't believe when they come to the city of Tonawanda, the view, the water, and what we have here. The Papa Grandes of the world get people to stop just using that bike path, to stop, look around, say, this is pretty cool. Maybe I want, oh, you got new houses going at Riverview? Prescott's Business is a clientele, an upscale restaurant that's bringing people in. And he will tell you that people are amazed. You can't make water. We have such a resource. that people just don't realize we exist. And so I've really focused on trying to get, how do we get recognized? How do we get people in here that stop? And instead of just going through as quick as they can, driving down Niagara Street to go to Niagara Falls or Buffalo, to stop, take a look around and say, wow, this is pretty impressive. And then we can go, and by the way, with the services you have, 2 paramedics will be at your door in 3 minutes if you're having an issue. The police department answers barking dog calls where, just in other municipalities, you don't even bother to do that. Your streets are plowed at 6 o'clock in the morning. Your garbage is picked up. I mean, there is a lot of wonderful things that the city offers that no one else knows. So that's the role I've tried to take, is how do we develop these properties? How do we get moving forward? How do we get people in here to actually take a look at the city of Tonawanda and say, this is someplace I'd like to live. This is someplace I'd like to work. Maybe that person that comes to Prescott's, wherever, and says, this is maybe a place I'd like to open a business. This is something I can do. Well, what's available down on Main Street? That's the projects I'm hoping. Does Papa Grande's with $11,000 change anything? No, but it's the side benefits that I'm hoping take hold and we can move forward with. Dave Sutton's been fantastic with the project. He's working on the next one with St. Francis. We met with Stapleton. I want it to be that there's such demand for housing. We don't have to prod the Vets Park project to go along, because he's going to want to build them, because he knows the houses are going to sell right away, because people are going to be jumping to get those houses. So that's the role that I've taken for the first 2 months and 3 months, or almost through 3 months of the administration. And that's what I've been focusing on. That's the part I think I can make a difference for. The foreclosures are a big thing. It broke my heart with this water department property that's not on this list. It'll be on the next one. They bought it. A developer from New York City never paid a tax, never paid a fee. The grass cutting's gone. It's $100,000, never paid a dime to the city. That's a place where 5 houses can go tomorrow and would be amazing. So that's one of the steps that's really, I think, going to help getting these foreclosures going and the NREMs. So that's the approach, and where I focused all 99% of my energy in the first 3 months.
Got it. All right. Anybody have anything else? No. Okay, so at this time, we're going to close the special meeting. We're going to adjourn from the public, where we are going to go into executive. We will then finish our night from there. There will be nothing else after the executive. So at this time, I make a motion to enter into executive. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Swayze, City Clerk. We'll see you in the executive session. Thank you.
Stay for executive. What gets old because it's the contracts. I want you to. It's all right. This is what we're doing.
Yeah, I got one for you after that. Yeah.
Here anyways. If you had something, you don't have it, but it's kind of like.
The next 2 meetings. But hide it.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a lot longer than I can discuss these things. Zach.
Yeah, back in action. I got a plate in my sneaker, so. My wife switched it, so I
you guys understand.
This Hitler. No, I understand. No, I know. But like, they brought it in, they said. Yeah, they said it's close. Then they said she increased like. Yeah, that's what I was saying. That was high school, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I hear ya, that was just the justification. Yeah. I hope you know that. Yeah. I'll see you later. I would have shown these places. How many are there? It's more than one. Let me just play that. Oh. You do that.
Motion to adjourn the special meeting, all in favor? Aye. No. I'm like,
Yeah.